In BTD6 there are 4 map difficulties: Beginner, Intermediate, Advanced, and Expert. But very early into the game's lifespan, the community divided the Expert maps into 2 categories, Expert and True Expert, as a response to newer Expert level maps such as Dark Castle not living up to the difficulty of the original Expert maps. Several years after the game's release, the map editor got introduced, and since then a small group of very dedicated players has taken on the quest of creating the most difficult and extreme maps imaginable. Welcome to the realm of true expert level maps. I began my research by speaking to the people who started the Maplist project to find out why they started it and how they decide on the rankings for all of the maps.
Oh yeah, I'm Derpskull. I'm from Maryland in America. I started playing Bloons, like the series, like 2011 probably.
So you started this project together with Mera, who is on vacation in Germany at the moment, so sadly he could not make an interview. But tell us about when and why you two started this project.
So we started Maplist like the day map editor dropped, and the reason is, I don't know if you've ever played Geometry Dash or have been in the Geometry Dash scene, but they have a thing over there called the Demon List, which is basically the ranking of the hardest custom Geometry Dash maps that have ever been made. And as soon as we saw Map Editor was dropping for Bloons, we immediately knew that this idea would transition like almost perfectly to the Bloons community, because it's a community known for liking to push difficulties as far as they go.
Is there anything other than the insanely difficult map layout that makes these custom maps so much harder than the true experts?
Ravine and Bloody, the difference between them and Maplist, a really important difference, is the leveling speed. Which is why, actually a big reason why Bloody is considered a lot easier than most custom maps, is because heroes level slower, which means every hero except for Doreo is significantly handicapped.
Wait, so when you're playing a regular map, heroes level up at different speeds depending on the map difficulty, but when you're creating a custom map, you don't get to tell the game how difficult the map is, so the hero won't be leveling up at the correct speed?
No, you don't. All maps are locked to intermediate leveling, which is like the biggest thing that this community has been asking to be changed for a long time.
I know you rank the maps based on playtesting from the best players in the group as well as the moderators. But apart from the rank, there's also a score attached to each map that you use for a leaderboard of the best custom map players. How does that score work?
So the algorithm was designed by XL. He's like our list technician. He's the one who does a lot of the technical stuff on the spreadsheet. It was originally, before we added points for special runs, it was designed to just give points on a straight line. And then over time we changed it to follow a curve, which uses some formula I don't completely understand because I'm not really a math guy. Yeah, and then additionally, as we've discovered, with Doreo being just by far the most dominant here on the list, we decided to give extra points for maps being beaten with any hero aside from Doreo, just due to how much harder it is to do. On top of that, we'll give bonus points for having the highest leftover on a map, which we'll do it. We give it a flat rate, because in theory, it should be equally difficult to have the highest leftover on every map, regardless of how hard the map is. And on top of that, we give a significant bonus for being able to black border maps, because of, again, just how hard it is to black border even, like, the Ninja Kiwi maps without guides.
With Bloody Puddles being the hardest of the true expert maps, what was the first custom map that was even harder than that one?
The first map, I believe, that was ever put onto the list that was harder than Bloody Puddles was Slow River by Unique Potatoes. I don't know if that was the first one created that was harder. I believe the map Red Desert Run was technically created first, but that one was added later to the list. So it would show if you went back through the changelog history that Slow River was added first, but I believe Red Desert Run was the first map to be made that was harder than Bloody Puddles.
Before going to the hardest maps on the list, I wanted to get a feel for how much harder the first map list entries were in comparison to Bloody Puddles, and for that I asked the most well-known Chimps player for help.
Alright, so I'm Chomchom.
Alright Chomchom, I asked you to beat Red Desert Run for me. How did that go and what strategy did you use?
Well, originally I wanted to do Master Bomber thing. By 95 came around, like I really didn't have enough space for Shinobis because in my mind it thought it kind of looked at it like that, but there was like a surprise cactus behind and things kind of fell apart on 95, so I decided to rerun it with the Glaive Lord, and just because it's such a stronger strategy I decided I'm gonna go for some cash spare, and I ended up getting 33,000 spare, which is pretty nice.
And how hard would you say that this map is in comparison to Bloody Puddles?
I don't know, they're very different. Glaive Lord's definitely a lot better on this map than on Bloody Puddles, so I guess it kind of depends on the towers, but I guess it's a little bit harder. I definitely can tell that the early game was easier though.
Given that you completed the run with a decent cash save, does that mean you would be able to beat the map with a hero other than Geraldo?
Yeah, I would be able to do that.
A lot of the top maps on the list really require a lot of micros to be able to beat them. Did you need to micro your towers a lot on this map in order to beat it?
No, not really. There wasn't much micro involved in here. Pretty much it's just like overclock Glaive Lord, and that's pretty much all. There was some like Geraldo stuff mid-round, like spiking a few things that came by mid-round, but other than that, no, not really.
What would you say is some of the biggest differences between playing the regular true expert maps versus the maps at the top of the map list?
Definitely the hero. It's a lot of Geraldo. I feel like that definitely could be solved with the level XP leveling, because Geraldo's like really good, but there are other heroes that are also really good that could contend to be up there. And also, I'm just not really the biggest fan of using exactly the same strategy over and over again. I guess that's kind of my thing. Like I'll never do the same thing.
So as you go further up, there is less and less room to mix up your strategy, and once you reach the top, there really isn't much room at all.
Yeah, there isn't.
After getting Chomchom's thoughts about the map that he played, it was clear that a lot of the earlier maps are on a similar level to the true expert ones, but not that much harder. For that, we need to climb the list by quite a bit. The document splits the list in two, the top 50 most difficult maps and the legacy maps that has fallen below rank 50. Red Desert Run was on the legacy list, and now we're going to travel all the way up to one of the hardest maps on the list, and also one of the most visually striking maps, Twisted Nightmare. The gameplay you're watching is from a person called Geeph, who is also the creator of the map, and I talked to him to find out more about how you can go about creating maps that are this difficult and what you need to do in order to beat maps that are this high up on the map list. So Geeph, how do you go about creating a map that is this difficult without accidentally making it either too easy or completely unbeatable?
It's just a lot of testing, man. To make that start possible took a lot of time to just figure out, all the dart placements, all the snipes, where I should be able to and where I shouldn't be able to actually place towers. Sometimes you'll have an idea and you'll just have to scrap it because it'll be impossible or you can't make it difficult. I would generally start with getting like a layout of lanes and line of sight blockers and placements. Don't decorate anything for that if you want to actually make a different map, because you're gonna have to change things.
I talked to Chomchom just the other day about some of the first few maps that was added to the project, and he said that in general they were on a similar difficulty level to Bloody Puddles. How much harder would you say that this map is compared to that one? Is there a way to quantify it?
I'm not sure, because they're really hard to compare, but they do have some similarities in that the early game is a lot more difficult, but Twisted also has a lot of placement issues, and it's just generally a lot harder, like in pretty much every conceivable way.
Now what's the strategy to beat a map that is this difficult? Walk us through what you did in this game that we're watching right now.
Early game, well, I guess like super early game is just placing darts and using shooty turrets because they're the most efficient, and then you go for the super monkeys with Geraldo's cape. They're very strong for their price, and they build into other things, like knockback is really good, robo is really good, and they also allow you to use up the places that you spent darts on, because normally those spots are really useful, and you don't want to have to waste them on darts. And then for late game, it's just Glaive Lord and Carpet of Spikes. Normally, you just go for one or the other. You don't really go for both, ever, but I kind of felt like going for both. And then Condor just carries the mid.
I'm a bit surprised about the Glaive Lord, because I've heard of a lot of people using it often on these extreme maps, but that tower used to be pretty bad. Has it gotten so good now with recent buffs that it's like a go-to tower?
I wouldn't say it's a go-to tower, but it's definitely a top 10 tier 5. It's really, really strong, especially since it synergizes so well with Condor, just being sort of a zone of death, and the Condor brings everything in there and keeps it there. That synergy is just incredibly broken.
I noticed that you used a macro to place your first 3 dart monkeys. Is that because the placement needs to be so precise to even beat the first few rounds?
Yeah, the placement's pretty precise. I just don't want to have to restart a bunch of times because I placed them wrong. A lot of people will do that, although it's rare that people actually have macros for custom maps. I just have it since, I made them map it. I had to test a lot of things, so...
I saw that on some rounds you need to try them several times in order to beat them, and you sort of try doing the same thing over and over again each time. Is that because you need good RNG to beat certain rounds, or is it just that some rounds are so difficult that you need multiple attempts to execute them properly?
Yeah, sometimes it's RNG, sometimes it's execution, but I think with these towers in particular, there's not a lot of RNG. But if you're choosing to do Flagship, which is one of the most powerful towers in the game right now, then it's a lot of RNG. Sometimes you can spend hours on a single round just trying it over, doing the exact same thing, and then just one time it'll work.
I've heard that many of these top maps are often impossible if you use any other hero than Geraldo. Do you think it would be possible to beat this one with a different hero?
It might be. I know there's a way that you can beat round 15 without him, or at least there used to be, because I did it in a previous version when I was testing the map, but I think it would be really difficult, specifically because of round 15. And then also, if you're using a hero that's not Geraldo or Adora, you're going to have a lot of the best spots wasted on Dart Monkeys. And if you're going Adora, then you also have the issue of round 40, because you have to save up a lot of money for like an assassin or something to actually be able to beat the Moab.
And if NK went ahead and actually fixed the hero leveling, would that make things a lot easier?
Yeah, Adora and Brickle, also Sai, would get a lot better. It's just, I really think they should add expert leveling, because currently Geraldo is the best hero by far, since he actually benefits from the lower leveling, whereas every other hero gets worse.
What do you mean that Geraldo benefits from the current lower leveling speed?
So the way that Geraldo works is that on level 20, he restocks all of his items, and with intermediate leveling, if you place him on round 14, which is a very common round to place him on, he will get his restock on round 96. That means you can get Genie for round 94 and 96 by placing one on 95 and one on 94, and then have 2 Genies for 98, as well as you just have a good timing for restocking all of his items, and it just makes the late game a lot easier.
The difficulty of these maps are mind-boggling. I decided to give Twisted Nightmare a go for myself, but I gave up sooner than I'd like to admit. And this is just rank 6 on the leaderboard. I still had 5 more difficult maps to take a look at. I decided I wanted to learn more about the top 2, Triangle Cave and Seasons, and those 2 maps had conveniently for me both been beaten by the same person, arguably the best player in the Maplist project, Slender Man. I reached out to Slender about an interview and also asked if he could record gameplay for me of him beating both of the maps, and he agreed to answer questions in writing and to record gameplay for Triangle Cave but not for Seasons, because it took him 15 hours to beat it last time, but he offered the original gameplay, albeit in very bad quality. A few days later, just as I was about to contact him again for the interview and gameplay, my research took an unexpected turn. I was contacted by PokéPowerz, a member of the Maplist Project's moderation team, letting me know that Slender was currently being investigated for potentially cheating his runs. I was asked to keep this quiet until the investigation was complete and published, and when it was, the evidence was overwhelming. Slender had cheated pretty much all of his runs, deceiving the other members for months. When confronted with all this, he had no choice but to finally tell the truth. I'm not going to add to the mountain of lies anymore. Most things you know about me are fake. I've faked most of my runs from both this and my other account, both NK map runs and Maplist runs. I usually spend an hour or two and then lie about the time it takes me on these runs by setting tower speed at 1.1x using a rate changer mod. Some runs more, some runs less, which makes it virtually indistinguishable for the human eye, but noticeable when replayed. I did it to be able to just do multiple hard runs per week, so people would realize I'm one of the best. My hardest legit run is Axis of Wizards on quad, which took me about 7 hours over the course of 2 days, back in version 34, where Mod Helper didn't update for an entire month and I had to do something. I don't really find the game fun, and I have a life and strict parents to deal with. I know that's not a good excuse to cheat. I already had plans to quit the game after version 44 because I already had lost interest. Sorry to all the people whom I've disappointed. I'm leaving all Bloons related servers and don't DM me. I won't respond. Reading through all of the evidence, I wondered how this all happened. What is the evidence required to get a run accepted, and how did Slender manage to cheat unnoticed for so long? I decided to talk to members of the moderation team who did the investigation, and it turned out that this was not even the first time that he had been caught cheating. Skucha, I heard you caught Slender cheating in the index server, which is another Bloons server for other types of records that you moderate. What happened there?
Yeah, so it was mainly me, and then also Iwi10, Chalkbox, and Smart Person. So we were kind of the 4 moderators there that just kind of... A lot of things were fishy and just couldn't add up, and then he eventually did get caught cheating. So on his very first account, he originally went by Jaish IRL, and he just faked a 2TC that was impossible at the time. It was armor-piercing darts and Ray of Doom 2TC on Resort. And since the sub can't pop camo purples, round 48 was impossible with his darling spot. So that was very easy proof he got caught right away. Then he made the alt Slender, joined, was really bad at first, and then instantly just became like amazing. The tipping point for him in Index was when he did Sky Shredder 2 Megapops on Bloody Puddles. Like he said, he said it took 10 hours to do, and obviously people are going to ask about proof. Then given proof, he just complained, and then a week later he gave us 4 rounds in Sandbox that didn't line up with what he said he did on the rounds. So that was just kind of, I don't know what he was thinking when he did that one. Like that was just really dumb. Because I'll give him, he is smart. Like he was able to get away with a lot of stuff, which is the scariest thing about a cheater. If they're also a good player, he's played for a while. I'm gonna be honest. He was a terrible person to talk to. Just absolutely miserable human being. The way he talked to just only about letting himself just like, all he did was talk about his ego. So I'm really biased in this case. Like I do not like him. So it definitely gave me some motivation to dig really deeper than a normal person should.
What was his reaction like when he first got caught in the index server?
So his initial reaction was like, why can't I see submissions anymore? I need to do more submissions. And then he did release like a truth document about how he only cheated like the 1 run on his old account, but everything on this one was real. As you'll see later, he also went back on that and said like every single run he ever did was fake. But it's the one thing every cheater gets caught do. They always just like admit to a few things at first to make you try and believe them and get you to feel guilty. And then he just kind of disappeared for a bit and then joined other communities rather than Index and kept doing runs. But continued to never give video proof for all his runs, So
what exactly are the requirements for proof? If you need video evidence, how did Slender manage to hide his cheats in his videos?
Back then you just had to show like footage of the last 10 rounds, which is the same now, but now we have like more strict requirements, like showing your mods folder and like not having cuts, or if you have cuts, then in between each section you have to show your mods folder or like what mods you have to active. But that was not a requirement back then. So what he did was record in low quality, low FPS, low bitrate, and kind of speed up his footage so it was less noticeable.
And he would always be having some type of excuse why he can't record, can't upload, why he forgot certain rounds, or why the video quality was just terrible.
When was he first suspected of cheating in the Maplist server?
The first suspicions, especially from the better players, was when he did this 50k run on Beached, which was our biggest evidence. That was back in January. People were suspicious of how the destroyers were facing after the end of round 100. But we didn't really have any ways of showing that he cheated or something, and we didn't really have the tools back then. That was basically when people started getting a little suspicion, and it wasn't until more recently that Alco came forward and said to all the staff that, hey, I'm suspicious of Slender, can we look into this a little more? And so we started looking a little more, and then we found more tidbits of like suspicious stuff. And so that's basically how we started writing a document on Slender, and we invited more people to the server where we did the investigation. Also some older players from Index that told us about what he did in Index and what to look for. Right now we can take maps from the servers, and we can use old versions and put them into the local map editors of old versions, so we can test the runs in the respective versions that they would play it in. So that's how I recorded the definitive proof that he cheated his round 100 Beached.
What do you think is gonna happen to Slender now? I mean, he cheated in Index, created an alt, cheated again, moved to Maplist, cheated again. Is he going to come back under another alt in the future?
I don't know, to be completely honest with you. I mean, I could see it happening. I would hope not. The dude's not very nice, plus a cheater, so just there's no reason for him to be really around. But I hope not. I hope he can take time and grow as an individual.
What about the number 1 map Seasons? Slender was the only person who ever beat that map, but that was cheated, so is the map even possible? Is it gonna stay on the map list?
It's taken off until someone beats it. Right now, we just assume it's impossible because the only completion we have is a cheated one. And so we're just waiting for anyone else to be able to beat it legitly. So right now, it's impossible until proven otherwise.
In an unexpected turn of events, just a few days later, a player by the name of COGumball beat the map Seasons and provided the full gameplay, and he even did it using Adora instead of Geraldo. Since then, the positions of Triangle Cave and Seasons has swapped places on the leaderboard, and Triangle Cave is currently the hardest map in the game, with PaulXD being the player who proved it to be possible. The Maplist project has existed for almost a year now, and in that time they've gone from true expert level maps all the way up to maps so difficult that only a handful of players can beat them. With how fast the Maplist project is evolving, it's only a matter of time before a new map will take the place of Triangle Cave. New players will join the server to fight for the throne, and some of those players will undoubtedly not play fair.